Chapter 135. Soon, Meng Long left the mountain with a few guards from the Wang family residence. Shen Hai had also returned to the Wang clan, intending to call a few more people over. Even though his two trusted aides had left, leaving behind a bunch of commoners, Wang Chong wasn't worried at all. Even so, Wang Chong wasn't worried at all. With Li Zhuxin and the newly recruited assassin Mayasame Ayaka around, Wang Chong didn't have to worry about any danger at all. As for Mayasame Ayaka, Wang Chong wasn't so foolish as to tell her everything he knew. Wang Chong only told her the first level of the secret art. Even though this level wasn't sufficient to make up for the flaws in Spectre Steps, it was sufficient to alleviate the injuries Mayasame Ayaka was suffering from. Mayasame Ayaka should be able to sense this as soon as she cultivated it. After Shin Hai and Meng Long left, Wang Chong didn't hold back. He first cultivated the single-character consecutive slash to the pinnacle before starting on the Dragon Bone art. Under the effects of the underground spirit vein, Wang Chong's mastery of the Dragon Bone art sped up significantly. Wang Chong was extremely familiar with all of this. Under the effects of the Dragon Bone art, Wang Chong's bones became tougher, denser, and more resilient. This was the effect of the tiger bone. The stronger the bones, the greater the endurance. A leopard would run out of energy after 100 meters, but a tiger would be able to chase after its prey. That was what Wang Chong was feeling at the moment. Even though the effects of cultivating the Dragon Bone art weren't too obvious, far from might of the barbaric god, Wang Chong could sense something deeper. His stamina and endurance were improving. Roughly half a month later, a bizarre sensation surged from within his body, and Wang Chong's body jolted. Under the effects of the spirit vein, he had finally broken through his bottleneck, reaching Tiger Bone 2 Dan. A surge of new energy was born within his body, and his bones seemed to be one with one. It was as though an explosive force could burst forth from any part of his body at any moment. This is the Tiger Bone 2 Dan. Wang Chong opened his eyes and felt that they were even brighter. In the past, he could only see 2 or 3 mountains ahead. But now, he could clearly see 5 or 6 mountains ahead. His field of vision had increased significantly. With a twitch of his ears, Wang Chong could hear a lot of sounds that he couldn't hear before, and the range of his hearing had also increased a lot. In the distance, a deer perked up its ears on a boulder, listening warily to the Harkin's voice. Wang Chong could hear the birds gliding down from the treetops. Refining the tiger bone to a certain level can indeed greatly improve a cultivator's vision, hearing, smell, touch, and so on. Wang Chong stood on the empty ground, thoughts flashing through his mind. This time, it wasn't just in terms of strength. Wang Chong felt that he was full of energy, which was completely different from before. Of course, this was just a feeling that couldn't be seen from the outside. "Master!" A voice suddenly sounded in his ears. Turning around, Wang Chong saw Mayasame Ayaka's bright eyes. She was still dressed in tight black clothes and a black veil, seemingly used to this attire. "What's wrong?" Wang Chong abruptly snapped out of his daze. "Master, there's something I would like to tell you," Mayasame Ayaka said. She seemed to be filled with worries and worries. "Oh." Wang Chong's interest was piqued. This was the first time she had taken the initiative to speak to him. "Do you remember that we assassins have a group?" "And what's wrong?" Wang Chong asked curiously. "This group is known as the Assassin Pavilion. The Spectre Steps was taught to me by the head of our Assassin Pavilion. Now that I've betrayed him, he'll surely find a way to kill me. Also, since the mission isn't over yet, he'll surely find someone else to kill you. In fact, he might even do it himself. The Assassin Pavilion will never accept a mission failure." Mayasame Ayaka said worriedly. "Heh, is he very formidable?" Wang Chong chuckled, not paying much heed to the matter. "Very formidable," Mayasame Ayaka replied seriously. "Even more formidable than Mr. Li?" Wang Chong chuckled as he pointed to Li Zhuxin. "Mr. Li isn't too bad, but I'm afraid that he isn't as formidable as our boss." Mayasame Ayaka's reply surprised Wang Chong. In an instant, the smile on Wang Chong's face vanished, replaced by a grave expression. Even Li Zhuxin couldn't help but turn his gaze over. Wang Chong knew how formidable Li Zhuxin was, and he had witnessed it with his own eyes. Yet, Mayasame Ayaka said that the Assassin Pavilion's boss was even more formidable than him? Wang Chang's face finally warped. If the Assassin Pavilion's boss was really that formidable, he was at least a true Martial Realm 8 Dan expert, perhaps even a profound Martial Realm expert. If that was the case, things wouldn't be as simple as they seemed. However, even though the boss is powerful, he rarely makes a move on his target. Furthermore, the rules of the Assassin Pavilion are different from other places. Before finding my whereabouts and confirming my death, he won't send anyone to deal with you. Before he finds me and ascertains whether I'm dead or alive, he won't send anyone to deal with you. So, I will hide myself carefully for the time being. Master, you must be careful as well. The Assassin Pavilion's boss is extremely fearsome. Mayasame Ayaka said grimly. Seeing how grave Mayasame Ayaka's words were, and how grave her face was, as if she was on the verge of death, Wang Chong couldn't help but chuckle. Master, what are you laughing at? Mayasame Ayaka suddenly felt a little embarrassed. I'm serious. I know. Wang Chong couldn't help but burst into laughter. You said that before he finds you and ascertains whether you're dead or alive, he won't make a move, right? Mayasame Ayaka replied seriously. How long do you think you can last without them noticing? Wang Chong asked once more. 3 months? No, if I work hard I should be able to reach 3.5 months. That's my limit. Mayasame Ayaka pondered for a moment before replying. There's no need to go through so much trouble. Why would there be a need for 3 months? To me, a single month is more than enough to solve this problem. Wang Chong knew that he was confident in his words. Mayasame Ayaka widened her eyes in shock as she stared at the young man before her in shock. Impossible. Mayasame Ayaka's first reaction was that it was impossible. Wang Chong would find it hard to deal with even her, needless to say, the Assassin Pavilion's boss. You can't be thinking that I'm alone, right? Your Assassin Pavilion's boss has a bunch of subordinates. Do you think that I would be so reckless as to fight him barehanded? Wang Chong chuckled. The Assassin Pavilion's boss was indeed formidable. If Wang Chong were an ordinary person, he would be helpless against him. But Wang Chong wasn't an ordinary person. Mayasame Ayaka was right. He had to be careful against top-notch experts. However, Wang Chong wasn't one to resign himself to his fate. You intend to mobilize the guards from the manor? It's useless. The guards in the master's manor, the 2 monks, the archer, Mr. Li, and I might not be a match for the assassins from the Assassin Pavilion. Mayasame Ayaka shook her head. She soon understood Wang Chong's intentions. As a descendant of ministers and generals, Wang Chong did possess an advantage that ordinary people didn't. However, these advantages were useless against assassins. Wang Chong's thoughts were extremely dangerous, and Mayasame Ayaka couldn't help but worry. You've misunderstood my intentions. Wang Chong waved his hands and hurriedly denied it. Why would I use the guards of the manor to deal with assassins? These guards were personally handpicked by my father from the battlefield. Even the death of a single one of them would make my heart ache. Naturally, I have to use the Imperial Army to deal with assassins. Hong Long. Even Li Zhuxin couldn't help but reveal a shocked expression on his face. The huge forest suddenly fell into a deathly silence. The people who were eavesdropping in the surroundings froze, and their eyes were filled with shock. The Imperial Army was the guardian of the Emperor, tasked to protect the capital. Only the current Holy Emperor had the authority to mobilize them. Yet, the young man behind them said that he could mobilize the Imperial Army. This was a taboo. You're actually able to mobilize the Imperial Army? Unknowingly, Li Zhuxin had walked over and assessed the young man before him in astonishment. But of course, most of it was disbelief. Wang Chong was just a teenager. Even if he came from a clan of generals, it was impossible for him to mobilize the Imperial Army. Wang Chong simply smiled, not bothering to explain. In his mind, he thought of Zhao Fengchen. He was already the commander of the Imperial Army. The master of the Assassin Pavilion might be powerful, but there was no way he would be stronger than the future commander of the Imperial Army. As for mobilizing the Imperial Army, There was a group of assassins in the capital. It was only right for the imperial army to be mobilized after such a huge incident. No matter how formidable an assassin was, it was impossible for them to stand against an army, not to mention the elite imperial army. Do you know the location of the assassin pavilion? Wang Chong suddenly asked. Mayasame Ayaka subconsciously nodded with a dazed look on her face. Even though there isn't a fixed location, there will be a monthly gathering at a specific location. That's enough, Wang Chong replied calmly. However, he had already made up his mind to inform Uncle Li Lin of the matter after he returned. He would leave this matter to Uncle Li Lin. Mayasame Ayaka didn't know that the fate of the organization she was in had been decided by a single word from Wang Chong. After cultivating for a few more days on the peak of the mountain, the guards that Xianxia dispatched from the Wang residence finally arrived. Gongzi, Mr. Daoba has sent me to invite you over. He said that the saber has been forged, and Gongzi will have to deal with the rest. Madam has also sent word that something has happened in the residence, and she requests Gongzi to return to the residence as soon as possible. A guard of the Wang family knelt on one knee on the ground, his expression respectful. Upon hearing those words, Wang Chong's eyes fell into a daze. Unknowingly, so much time had passed in the mountain, and Toba Gun's narrow, thin, thick saber had already been forged. Now that he thought about it, it should have been done long ago. The experts of the imperial army had probably trampled through the doorstep of the Wang family residence, and they were already impatient from waiting. As for his mother, thinking about it, it had indeed been a long time since he had gone back. As a son, strength was important, but he couldn't ignore his family as well. Mr. Li, make some preparations. Let's descend the mountain, Wang Chong suddenly said. It was finally time to descend the mountain. Chapter 136. It had been a long time since Wang Chong had returned to the capital. Now that he was back from the mountain, he suddenly had a different feeling. The mood in the capital suddenly became rather strange, one of poetry reciting. Although there had been people who had composed poems in the past, they had never reached such a level. Gongzi still doesn't know, right? Now, there was a poem circulating in the palace about the number one beauty in the world, Consort Taizhen. It was said that the poem was beautifully written. Do you see that place, young master? Places like the parlor of clouds and rain, the parlor of spring breeze, the parlor of jade, the parlor of immortals, and the parlor of beauties are everywhere in the city. They're like bamboo shoots after the rain. Many of them aren't new either. They're old restaurants and tea houses that followed the trend and changed their names. Some even hang the poem on the door and make it into a plaque as a couplet. Amidst the surging crowd, the clueless Wang clan guard asked with great interest. Wang Chong did not look carefully at first, but after being reminded, he looked carefully. Sure enough, Wang Chong saw some extremely familiar scenery. On the left, clouds think of clothes, flowers think of beauty. On the right, the spring breeze caresses the balustrade, and the dew is dense. On the banner, parlor of clouds and rain. In another restaurant, there was a completely different picture hanging on the wall. Left, if not for the Jade Mountain. Right, we will meet under the moon at the Yaotai. Horizontal line, Beauty House. Each and every one of them was a huge plaque. Beauty wine, beauty wine. A great hero should drink the wine of beauties. Fairy tea, come, drink a bowl, you will feel refreshed. Loud shouts came from the two restaurants and tea houses facing the street. Hearing these shouts, Wang Chong's expression suddenly became very interesting. Not many people knew that he had helped the King of Song and that he had written a poem. At least, the Wang family didn't know about it. The sudden change in the capital caught everyone off guard, and they didn't know whether to laugh or cry. But soon Wang Chong smelled something. It's very difficult for ordinary people to know about the affairs of the palace. This matter was most likely spread by that person in the Yuzhen Palace. At least she agreed. Wang Chong thought to himself. After cultivating on the spirit vein for more than a month, he didn't care much about the affairs of the court. However, since Consort Taizhen was willing to post this poem, it meant that Consort Taizhen had accepted his kindness. In other words, Although the king of Song and the consort Taizhen had disagreements and conflicts, with his matchmaking, at least the impact of this matter had been minimized. The fact that consort Taizhen was willing to spread this poem meant that she didn't care much about the king of Song. The fact that such words could be heard in the marketplace meant that the consort Taizhen incident's influence in the court had been minimized. If there were no accidents, this matter could be considered over. This song of purity and peace is indeed powerful. Wang Chong faintly smiled, and then he began to walk toward the Wang clan. Upon returning to the residence, the first thing Wang Chong did was to summon Tuoba Guyuan. Gongzi, the saber you wanted has been forged. In Wang Chong's room, Tuoba Guyuan was holding onto a 7-chi long saber. His head was lowered, and his eyes were deeply sunken. It seemed like he had spent a lot of time on it. It's heavy. The first thought that struck Wang Chong upon receiving the saber was how heavy it was. If one didn't possess immense strength, it would be impossible for one to move this saber. At the very least, it would be impossible for those below Origin Energy Tier 6 to use this saber. It's indeed different after adding a June of Hyderabad ores. Wang Chong thought. The Wuxia steel saber forged by Tuoba Guyuan was almost identical to the one on Wang Chong's blueprint. In certain aspects, it was even more demanding than Wang Chong's. Just from the color contrast, brightness, texture, and uniformity, Wang Chong could tell that the quality of this saber was much higher than the 4 Wuxia steel sword embryos he forged back then. As expected of the number 1 swordsmith in the future, Wang Chong was impressed. Wang Chong's Wuxia steel saber was forged by a few high-tier blacksmiths in the Wei residence, and his younger sister, Wang Xiaoyao, was also a part of it. However, this combination clearly couldn't match up to Tuoba Guyuan, the number 1 swordsmith in the future. In terms of pursuing certain details, Wang Chong realized that Tuoba Guyuan shared the same ideals as him. In fact, in certain aspects, they were even striving for perfection. Not bad. You've worked hard. Wang Chong nodded as he looked at Tuoba Guyuan. As long as Gongzi is satisfied. Tuoba Guyuan replied with the respectful expression. To Wang Chong, Tuoba Guyuan was the number 1 swordsmith in the world. However, to Tuoba Guyuan, Wang Chong was the true number 1 swordsmith. Tuoba Guyuan had immersed himself in the field of weapons for a long time, but he had never seen anyone who could design a weapon of this level. After forging it, Tuoba Guyuan gave it a try. The slash and slash prowess were extremely powerful, far surpassing other weapons that Tuoba Guyuan had seen before. Furthermore, it was extremely smooth to use, making it impossible for one to stop. Needless to say, put it down. To a saber cultivator, this saber would definitely possess an incredible allure. You can go and rest first. Leave the rest to me. Gongzi. Tuoba Guyuan bowed and left quickly. What is hard is easy to break. This was an irrefutable logic. Tuoba Guyuan's initial forging was completed. However, such a saber was far from what Wang Chong required. The subsequent steps, quenching and tempering, were the most crucial. Without these 2 steps, the 7 feet long narrow, thin, and thick saber might not even be able to reach the battlefield and encounter those powerful experts and weapons. It wouldn't be long before it broke because of its rigidity. However, quenching and tempering could greatly increase the toughness of a weapon, preventing it from breaking too easily. If one didn't know these 2 steps, even if one were to imitate the outer appearance of Wang Chong's weapon, one wouldn't be able to obtain the essence of the saber and it would still break easily. After placing the 7-chi long saber in his room, Wang Chong first washed up and changed into a clean set of clothes. After which, he ran over to pay his respects to his mother. Mother! Wang Chong bowed respectfully to his mother. I'm sorry for worrying you over the past few days. In Wang Chong's heart, his mother would always be the most important. Hee, it's good that you're back. Madame Wang sat on a dark-colored wooden armchair. Upon seeing Wang Chong's return, she pointed to the seat beside her and said, "Sit." Wang Chong obeyed and sat down. However, he was curious. He received a message from his mother at the spirit vein. If it wasn't something important, his mother wouldn't call for him. "Chong, I called you back this time. I have something to discuss with you. Madame Wang's expression softened. Even though Wang Chong was only 15 years old, he rarely caused her to worry. This was unimaginable in the past. Chong, do you still remember how you said that you wanted to enter the Kanwa training camp? Wang. A single stone raises 1,000 ripples. Wang Chong's heart jolted. He abruptly raised his head with a solemn expression. He had thought about why his mother would look for him, but he didn't expect it to be this matter. Mother, is there any news regarding the Kanwa training camp? Wang Chong asked with a concerned expression. The consort Taijin incident and regional commanders incident were closely related to the royal court, but the 3 great training camps were the most closely related to him. In his previous life, because he didn't enter the 3 great training camps, Wang Chong had to take many detours. Eventually, due to his talent in the art of war, he caught the eye of the elders and became the Grand Marshal of the Central Plains. However, it was already too late by then. His defeat was already decided. The heavens help those who help themselves. One's fate had to be grasped in one's own hands. Thus, while Wang Chong paid attention to the matters of the royal court, Wang Chong also paid attention to the 3 great training camps. In Wang Chong's plan, the 3 great training camps was an important part of it. Madame Wang wasn't aware of Wang Chong's thoughts. She only thought that he was desperate to enter the 3 great training camps. The matter regarding the 3 great training camps has been decided, and they are currently constructing 3 large-scale training camps. Also, the slots have been confirmed. The first batch of slots is extremely tight, and all of the clans are hoping to send their children there. In the capital, all of the prestigious clans are working hard on this matter, hoping to snatch a slot for the training camps. I remembered that you said that you wanted to enter the Kanwa training camp, so I called you over. Madame Wang said. How can that be? Hearing his mother's solemn tone, Wang Chong's eyebrows twitched. He was surprised. The slots for the 3 great training camps were tight, but in Wang Chong's memories, it shouldn't have reached such a level yet. When the 3 great training camps were first established, the scope of attention wasn't small. It was only after the first batch that the prestigious clans began to chase after them. If what his mother said was true, then the attention that the 3 great training camps garnered was much greater than what he remembered in his previous life. You don't have to worry about the slots for now. 2 days ago, your big uncle sent me a message. The King of Song has already secured 2 slots for you. However, this isn't a guarantee. I heard that the Holy Emperor has given his approval for the training camp this time around, and no one is allowed to tamper with it. If you wish to enter the training camp, you have to pass an examination. The slot that the King of Song has given you isn't a guarantee either. So, I intend to find you a teacher. The King of Song, the King of Song. Wait a moment, Mother, what did you just say? Teacher? What teacher? You want to find me a teacher? Wang Chong was astonished. Her words were still fine at the start, but the tone of her words changed completely. Why did she bring up the topic of the Kanwa training camp to a teacher? Indeed, Madame Wang didn't think much of it. She thought that Wang Chong was just a little embarrassed. There are quite a few prestigious clans in the capital, and the competition is too intense. I asked around, and the madams in the capital are all running around worrying about this matter. Some of them even went to the royal palace to plead with the concubines. Given how intense the competition is, I've thought about it for a long time, and I think that it's better for you to find a teacher. This is also the main reason why I brought you back. With a teacher, nothing will go wrong. Otherwise, if you fail, our Wang clan is a clan of generals. Our Wang clan is a clan of generals. At that time, we will lose face greatly. Madame Wang said with a worried look. Chapter 137. Mother, there's no need. Wang Chong quickly said. Why? Madame Wang was surprised. Wang Chong's reaction was far beyond her expectations. Chong, I'm doing this for your sake. Actually, I should have hired a master for you long ago. It was only because of my father's absence and my negligence that this happened. Listen to your mother this time. Mother, wait a moment. The Kanwa training camp hasn't officially started yet, right? Let's talk about it after some time. Wang Chong hurriedly dodged the question. Wang Chong knew that his mother meant well, but with his situation he didn't need a master at all. On the other hand, he could be someone else's master. Bringing a master over, not knowing his background or depth, would instead restrict Wang Chong. He would have to consider many things, and he would not be able to do as he pleased. For example, Wang Chong would have a lot of concerns about the secret alchemist teams in the Imperial Palace and the Prince's mansions. After spending so much time together, he would eventually be discovered. If that kind of secret was exposed and the Wang family was implicated, it would cause a huge uproar. What do you mean wait a while? By that time, it would be too late. Nonsense. Listen to me this time. I'll find a master for you. It's settled then. Madame Wang finally put on a stern face and displayed the authority of a parent. By the time the 3 great training camps started, what was the point of looking for a master? Wasn't that just fooling around? Mother, I'll tell you the truth. Actually, I already have a master. Seeing that his mother was going to make decisions for him, Wang Chong finally confessed. You have a master? Madame Wang's face was filled with astonishment. Yeah. Mother, haven't you noticed that my strength has increased a lot? Didn't I defeat Duke of Su's grandson, Su Xian, at the Four Quarters Embassy? Actually, I already have a master. It was uncle who arranged it for me. At the critical moment, Wang Chong hurriedly summoned his uncle, Li Lin. His uncle was an expert from the Imperial Army. His presence would definitely be convincing. Your uncle? As expected, when she heard Uncle Li Lin's name, her mother frowned deeply, but she did not pursue the matter further. If it's a master that your uncle found for you, then it's possible. Your uncle is in the Imperial Army, and there are many experts in the Imperial Palace. With his ability, it would be more than enough for him to find a teacher for you. After saying so, Madame Wang finally gave up. Wang Chong quickly changed the topic and found an excuse to change the topic, which made his mother laugh. Coming out of the room, Wang Chong wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. I'll have to inform uncle about this matter, lest we expose ourselves. Wang Chong thought to himself. Although he temporarily used his uncle as a shield, Wang Chong did not dare to be careless. Although his mother was easy to talk to at times, she wasn't easy to fool at other times. Perhaps one day, he would ask about his master on a whim. Looks like that matter has to be brought forward. Wang Chong quietly said to himself as he recalled that matter. Setting off from his residence, Wang Chong drove straight to the Wei residence. Wang Chong, you're finally back. Upon hearing the news, Wei Hao ran out of his residence excitedly with a look of anticipation on his face. It had been a while since they last met, and Wei Hao's frame seemed to have grown significantly. His spirit was completely different from before. Furthermore, he even brought along a few lackeys from the prestigious clans. I heard that you were out of the city, so I went to your residence a few times. The guards at your residence have no idea where you went. Right, these are my new lackeys, Tao Chun and Lu Jin. Hurry up and pay respect to young Master Chong. Wei Hao laughed as he looked behind him. Paying respect to young Master Chong. Upon hearing Wei Hao's words, the 2 scions hurriedly bowed. When he stood up, he glanced at Wang Chong in the carriage with a tinge of fear in his eyes. There was probably no one in the 8 Gods Pavilion who didn't know of Wang Chong. It seems like you've been doing well recently. Wang Chong looked at the 2 scions in surprise. Wei Hao was known as a lone wolf in the 8 Gods Pavilion. Other than him, he didn't have any friends. But now, this fellow actually took in lackeys. Not bad. You've been living well recently. Wang Chong was here to look for Wei Hao, but at this moment, he wasn't in a hurry anymore. Of course. You might not know, but that lad, Gao Fei, has become extremely obedient after beating him up. Do you think it'll be that easy for that lad, Su Bai, to lay a finger on me? Right now, in the 8 Gods Pavilion, I, Wei Hao, am an 8-legged crab. Wei Hao patted his chest gleefully. Hi, youngster Wei, cut it out. I still don't know who you are. Wang Chong exposed him with a single sentence and beckoned him over. Come up, I have something to talk to you about. You guys can return first. I'll look for you later. Seeing that Wang Chong was serious, Wei Hao beckoned to the 2 scions behind him, and without any hesitation he immediately dived into Wang Chong's carriage. The carriage began moving, and Wei Hao sat down opposite to Wang Chong. "Wang Chong, what's the matter?" "Wei Hao, do you remember what I told you previously? That I wanted you to look for someone for me?" "Zhang Munian?" "No, the other one. You can't have forgotten about it, right?" Wang Chong said. "You mean that?" Wei Hao immediately understood what he meant. "Regarding the matter regarding the charity hall, I've done as you instructed. Right now, there are around 30 shops in the capital that are run by us. Every day, we would give out porridge, clothes, and blankets to the vagabonds and beggars. However, the daily expenses for these are huge, and you should be able to afford it. As for the old man you wanted me to look for, I've paid attention to him as well. I really didn't see him. Back then, after the incident at the Blue Bottle Pavilion, Wang Chang's uncle interceded on his behalf, and he sold the first Wuxia steel sword to Zhao Fengchen for 37,000 taels. Wang Chong gave half of the money to Ablonidon and Arloja, and the other half to Wei Hao. It was then that Wang Chong requested Wei Hao to do him a favor. The first matter was to set up the charity hall. In his previous life, when the Wang clan fell, Wang Chang's entire family wandered from place to place, experiencing all kinds of hardships in the world. They were treated coldly, looked down on, and starved. This was because he had experienced such a life, and he had accepted gifts and help from others. Thus, he could understand why. Regardless of the era, space-time continuum, or even the most prosperous era, there was no lack of vagabonds and beggars who wandered from place to place. There were all sorts of reasons why these people wandered from place to place. Some of them were like Wang Chong in his previous life. Some were born with a disability, some met with an unexpected calamity, some suffered a huge mental trauma, and some lost the land that they relied on for survival. Regardless of the reason, every single one of them had a different tragedy to face. Due to his own experience, Wang Chong wanted to set up the charity hall to help those in need. It was just like those people whose names he didn't know, but who had helped him in his previous life. This was one of Wang Chong's wishes in his previous life. The other matter was to look for a mysterious old man. In his previous life, there were a few things that Wang Chong wanted the most, but he had never been able to obtain them. Even in his death, he had no fate with these things. One of them was So Yongsun's art of god and demon obliteration. In the Battle of the Capital, So Yongsun had used his own strength to display a world-shaking sword art, killing thousands of the otherworldly invaders and stopping their offensive. This supreme art had just revealed its edge and shocked the world when it was buried together with So Yongsun in the ruins of the capital, becoming a lost art. In the days to come, there would be countless bloody battles that required this art, but no one would be able to use it. Countless people sighed endlessly when they brought it up, revealing endless regret. The other was the great Yin-Yang heaven creation art. In the war against the otherworldly invaders in the Central Plains, there was one person who stood out the most. He didn't need any weapons, but he could easily kill a large number of the otherworldly invaders. Before him, all the otherworldly invaders would be turned into withered corpses, their deaths extremely gruesome. In the war against the otherworldly invaders, the might displayed by the great Yin-Yang heaven creation art was not one bit inferior to that of So Yongsun, who had fought against 10,000 in the capital. In the apocalyptic era, this was publicly acknowledged as one of the 5 great arts. Unfortunately, even though this person had obtained the world mining art, his talent was far too lacking. His combat experience, reaction speed, agility, and adaptability were all incomparable to this supreme art. Given this person's mediocre talent, he should never have learned this art. Later on, he learned that this was indeed the case. When this person was 27 or 28, he had accomplished nothing and was working as a hired laborer in a wealthy clan. He didn't have much of a cultivation in martial arts, and he didn't even have much interest in it. However, his greatest merit was that he had a kind heart. Normally, he would often help those in need. Then, one day, for some unknown reason, he actually saved a peerless devil. When this demon was young, he committed all sorts of evil and killed countless people, inspiring fear in the world of sections. But after he was betrayed and saved by that person, his personality underwent a huge change. He abandoned evil and became a kind and benevolent old man. The old man had forced him to accept the great yin-yang heaven creation art, and had even led him onto a completely different path. As if to atone for his sins, and also to change that person's overly ordinary and mediocre aptitude, the old man gave up all of his power and even his life. He used the Great Enlightenment technique to transfer all of his power to that person, and from then on, he created a peerless genius. As for the old man himself, he died from the dissipation of his cultivation. Just like that, an ordinary 28-year-old man with mediocre talent became a top-notch expert in the span of a single night. In order to repay the old man's kindness, he hardened his heart and killed those who had betrayed the old man. At the same time, he also walked a path that he had never wanted to tread. Wang Chong had never met that person, but all of this, including all of his encounters, had been spread by that person himself. When a person stepped onto a path that he didn't like, even if he succeeded, he wouldn't be happy. When a person was born with mediocre talent and had no intention of stepping onto the martial path, his fate was already sealed the moment he stepped onto this path in order to repay the old man's kindness. In the end, that peerless expert who possessed the great yin-yang heaven creation art fell into a heavy encirclement because of his mediocrity in combat. He was surrounded and killed by the horsemen of the foreign lands. The great yin-yang heaven creation art was lost in the later stages as a result. At that time, Wang Chong hadn't become the Grand Marshal of the Central Plains yet, and the martial artists of the Central Plains hadn't begun the campaign to promote martial arts to the public. Chapter 138. Wang Chong remembered all of these things deeply. These were the things that Wang Chong deeply regretted after he became the Grand Marshal of the Central Plains. It was precisely because of this that his path to saving the Central Plains was filled with twists and tribulations. Even until his death, Wang Chong was unable to surpass his limits and reach those legendary realms. As such, in this reincarnation, Wang Chong's greatest wish was to make up for the regrets in his heart. He wanted to obtain these ultimate arts that were destined to be forgotten in the future. Not only was it for himself, but it was also so that these top-notch ultimate arts wouldn't be buried in the dust of history like in his previous life. As such, on Wang Chong's list of names, the old man who possessed the great yin-yang heaven creation art had always been an important figure. However, it was a pity that the old man was too mysterious. Even that old man was extremely secretive about his unorthodox teacher, only addressing him as the evil emperor. The capital was massive, so how could Wang Chong know when he would be ambushed or where he would appear? In this aspect, Wang Chong could only ask for Wei Hao's help. There's no need to rush this matter. Just help me keep a lookout. See if there's any special old man. Wang Chong knew that he had given Wei Hao too few details, and it was no different from searching for a needle in a haystack. It would be too difficult for Wei Hao to find the evil emperor with just these few details. After driving Wei Hao around the city, Wang Chong took a look at the charity hall. Wei Hao had indeed done a good job. The entrance of the charity hall was packed with people. Clothes, food, water, and a place to rest. All of these were well prepared. In this aspect, it was much better for the Wei clan to have a specialized talent than for him to do it himself. I will have Xianxia prepare another 50,000 gold taels for you. Open more of these charity halls. Other than the capital, you can open more of them in other places as well. Also, help me keep an eye on the old man I mentioned when you have the time. Inform me as soon as you receive any news. Alright. Wei Hao agreed without hesitation. After chatting with Wei Hao for a while, Wang Chong put Wei Hao down and walked toward the Ghost Tree District. Now that he thought about it, it had been more than a month since he last went to the Ghost Tree District to play chess. Big brother. Under the huge locust tree, most of the people had dispersed. However, there was another kid squatting on the ground. When he saw Wang Chong, his eyes lit up and he stood up, his face flushed with excitement. Little guy, you're still here. Wang Chong smiled and patted his head, handing over a candy man he had bought on the way. Big brother, why were you gone for so long? The old grandpa had asked several times. I thought you weren't coming. The child named Jian said. His words were unintentional, but the listener took it to heart. Wang Chang's heart skipped a beat when he heard the old man, Jian, mentioned several times. After playing chess for so long, this was the first time Wang Chong had heard of that person. There was no doubt that his performance in chess had finally attracted his attention. Don't worry, how could Big Brother not come? I'm just going on a long trip. Wang Chong smiled. Then will Big Brother go on a long trip again? I don't think so. Wang Chong said. The opening of the 3 major training camps was a major event that could affect one's career and fate for the rest of one's life. In comparison, advancing 1 or 2 levels in the spirit vein wasn't that important. In any case, he could go there again in the future. That's great. The child wasn't a scheming person. When he heard that Wang Chong wouldn't be going on a long trip again, he immediately jumped up in excitement. As he shouted, he reached his chubby hand into the chest jar and took out a black piece. Big Brother, here's a piece for you. Wang Chong smiled and held the black piece in his hand, but his eyes were fixed on the chessboard. The first time Wang Chong had come here, the game on the golden chessboard had been a one-sided battle. There were only a dozen or so pieces on the chessboard. But now, the chessboard was densely packed with 80 or 90 black and white pieces. With a glance, Wang Chong knew that the white pieces were at an absolute disadvantage. The white pieces aren't far from losing. Looking at the golden chessboard, Wang Chong smiled. So Yong-sun might be unparalleled in martial arts and was a war god, but when it came to the art of war, he was no match for him. When it came to commanding battles, he had probably experienced more battles than Wang Chong in his previous life, not less. Moreover, before he transmigrated, he was already the publicly acknowledged war saint in a global strategy game. In terms of martial arts, he was naturally miles behind So Yong-sun. But when it came to the art of war, there was probably no one in this world who could beat him. In a few more days, the white pieces will probably have to admit defeat. Wang Chong laughed in his heart. His way of playing chess was completely different from others. From the first day, his black pieces had been laying out a game. Looking at the situation, Su Zhengxin felt that he only held a slight advantage at the moment. But after a few days, his plan would be completed. So Yong-sun would know that he had no hope at all. Wang Chong might have challenged him to a duel, but to play chess with him, even if it was the war god that he respected, he had chosen the wrong opponent. But as these thoughts flashed past his mind, Wang Chong put down his piece and pressed it neatly on the golden chessboard. One more thing. After leaving the Ghost Tree district, Wang Chong thought of Liu Zhizhang. It had been more than a month, and logically speaking, he should have at least 3 elixirs. Turning his horse around, Wang Chong headed straight for the falling jade pavilion. "Io, my little ancestor, eldest young master, you're finally here. If you're any later, something big is going to happen." In the falling jade pavilion, a lamp was lit. Seeing Wang Chong appear, Liu Zhizhang slapped his thigh with a frightened expression. "Do you know that if you don't appear, the qualification that you obtained with great difficulty will be revoked?" Then, the qualification to become a shadow that he had worked so hard to obtain would be revoked. That's 200,000 gold taels. That's 200,000 gold taels. Don't exaggerate it. If something really goes wrong, can you handle it? Where's the elixir? Hurry up and hand it over. Wang Chong laughed heartily, not falling for his trick. Liu Zhizhang was from the Alchemist Alliance, and given his strength, it was only a matter of a few days. It was impossible for him to stall for time. As expected, after hearing Wang Chong's words, Liu Zhizhang chuckled awkwardly. This young master of the Wang clan might be young, but it wasn't easy to fool him. "Where's the elixir?" 3, right? Hand it over. Wang Chong said as he lifted his robe and sat down on the tiger skin chair in the room. The falling jade pavilion looked eerie from the outside, but it was luxurious on the inside. As expected, I can't hide it from young master. Liu Zhizhang didn't beat around the bush and walked into the room. When he came out, there were a few purple brocade boxes in his hands. "Young master, please open it. This is something that I exchanged for with a few others for you this month." Liu Zhizhang said with a fawning expression. The Alchemist Alliance wouldn't easily do business with outsiders. For example, The Wang clan might be a family with 3 generations of generals and ministers, but they didn't enter the eyes of the Alchemist Alliance. Their partners were all longtime allies. Some of them even originated from the previous dynasty and were extremely secretive. However, the Wang clan was the most special one. Not only did they have a huge influence in the court, but they also made up for their biggest shortcoming, wealth. It was just like the embryonic form of the empire's largest family in the future. At least, in Liu Zhizhang's eyes, as long as everything remained unchanged. In the future, they might become the newest and eternal partner of the Alchemist Alliance. It's been hard on you. Don't worry. I won't mistreat you for helping me. Wang Chong patted Six-Fingered Zhang's shoulders, as though he was impartial in his punishment and reward. But when Wang Chong opened the first box, a familiar smell assailed his nostrils. Within the brocade box, a white pill lay at the bottom of the box. Its surface was emitting a faint aura. Tiger Bone Small Rejuvenation Pill. Wang Chong's eyes lit up as he called out. Among all the pills, the one he liked the most was this pill that could raise one's aptitude. This kind of pill was really too rare. It was impossible to buy it in the outside world. This was the exclusive trade of the Alchemist Alliance in the palace. This small rejuvenation pill seems a little different? Suddenly, Wang Chong's eyelids twitched. He noticed something different. This Tiger Bone Small Rejuvenation Pill seemed to be different from the one he had consumed before. Young master has good eyesight. The one you consumed before was just a defective product. This was the pill that had been refined to perfection. The effect is completely different. Six-Fingered Zhang chuckled, revealing Zhang Xian's secret. What? Wang Chong was taken aback. He immediately looked at the pills in the brocade box. Young master, don't be nervous. Our Alchemist Alliance doesn't sell defective products. All of these pills were of good quality. The so-called defective products are only in the eyes of us alchemists. In the outside world, they are still top-notch pills. I know that young master wants top-notch pills that can raise one's aptitude. That's why I spent a lot of effort to get them for you. Liu Zhizhang began to take credit. Did you go gambling again? Hearing this, Wang Chong smiled. He didn't even look at the pills. He raised his head and looked at Liu Zhizhang. Listen to me. If you want to gamble, you can. But don't go to those Gaoli gambling houses anymore. At that time, you will be in trouble. I won't be able to save you every time. Wang Chong said. Young master's eyes are really sharp. Liu Zhizhang smiled embarrassedly. Being stared at by a 15-year-old boy made him feel like a child doing something wrong in front of an adult. Liu Zhizhang knew that this was wrong, but he couldn't help but have such a feeling. This young master of the Wang clan was simply too cunning. He could see through one's heart with just a glance. He didn't say anything at all. He just knew that he went to gamble and was short of money. In just a few interactions, Six-Fingered Zhang already felt that there was no secret he could hide from the other party. Don't worry, there will be plenty of benefits for you. Wang Chong just casually said and didn't pursue the matter seriously. With a snap, Wang Chong opened the box. A dense wave of elemental energy immediately emitted from the brocade box. Smelling this scent, Wang Chong's expression changed. Elemental Chi Pill. You guys can actually refine such a thing. Chapter 139. It's not that powerful. Hearing the name Vitality Pill, Liu Zhizhang was startled. That wasn't the name of the pill. However, he quickly understood what Wang Chong meant. This is an acquired pill. It's a new pill recipe that a young alchemist in the palace recently researched. It has never appeared before. It's very difficult to refine, and it has exploded many times. Right now, it's only a few defective products. It hasn't been perfected yet. This kind of defective product that was first refined cannot be presented to the Holy Emperor or the princes in the palace. If there's a problem, their heads will fall off. In the end, they brought it here. I can't help it. This is a hard sell. Every month, there would always be some pills like this that were forced to be distributed. They're expensive and not very good. At the end, Six-Fingered Zhang had an embarrassed look on his face. Defective product? Wang Chong turned around with a surprised look. He looked at the pill on the table again. Sure enough, the pill didn't emit pure vitality, but some other impurities. He was too shocked before, so he didn't notice it. What you see is actually just a layer of wax on the outside. This way, the impurities in the pill can be sealed. Liu Zhizhang said embarrassedly. This was a small trick in alchemy. He was an alchemist himself, so he naturally knew about it. Wang Chang's eyes flickered, but he didn't say much. He grabbed the acquired pill on the table and stuffed it into his mouth. After the skin of the pill broke, a messy smell immediately came out. It's the smell of medicinal herbs, and it should be the kind of high-grade spiritual herbs. Wang Chong suddenly came to a realization. The alchemist probably wanted to extract the spiritual energy in the medicinal herbs, and then use some special method to refine something like the vitality pill. However, this matter was obviously not that easy. Gulp. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Wang Chong mumbled and quickly swallowed the pill. A wave of heat exploded in his body, quickly spreading to his limbs and bones. Wang Chong felt warm all over. With the help of the Dan Qi, Wang Chong felt that his strength had increased by a notch in just a moment. Compared to before, the essence in his body had also increased a little. After a while, when the medicinal efficacy of the pill disappeared, Wang Chong finally calmed down. What 6 batches Zhang said was right. This was indeed not some essence qi pill. There was only a small amount of essence qi in the elixir, not as much as Wang Chong had imagined. Liu Zhizhang didn't think much of it. From an alchemist's point of view, a defective product was worthless. But Wang Chong was different. I didn't expect that I could actually use money to buy something similar to the essence qi pill. Wang Chong's heart rose and fell, and it was difficult for him to calm down. To a martial artist, the most precious thing was undoubtedly yuan qi. In the imperial palace, there was actually someone who could refine something similar to the essence qi pill. This truly shocked Wang Chong. Wang Chong finally understood why this alchemist's secret alliance was so mysterious. The items were sold at such a high price, yet there were so many powerful forces that flocked to it. There were many things here that couldn't be bought with money in the outside world. This was truly a priceless treasure. How much does one acquired pill cost? Wang Chong asked, opening his eyes. 6,000 taels, Liu Zhizhang said. He wasn't talking about silver here, but actual gold. This was an alchemist used by the imperial palace. He had never sold an elixir that was priced in silver. How many can you refine in a month? 3. Liu Zhizhang said. I want all of them. Bring them all over for me. Wang Chong said. Six-fingered Zhang was astonished. But this is a defective product of the elementary level. I know. Wang Chong smiled and said in an unquestionable tone. The last one was a healing elixir. Although it looked ordinary, how could a healing elixir concocted by the Imperial Palace's alchemist be comparable to an ordinary one? With 2 elixirs, Wang Chong left the falling jade pavilion. After solving all the problems at once, Wang Chong focused all his attention on the 7 Qi long saber. This was Wang Chong's second weapon, which was very important to Wang Chong. Moreover, one wouldn't know the cost of daily necessities. Previously, when Wang Chong received more than 600,000 taels of gold, he felt that he would never be able to finish spending it. But when he really put it to use, he felt that he was spending money like water. Joining the alchemist's secret alliance cost him more than 200,000 taels of gold. After giving Wei Hao 50 to 60 taels of gold and adding other miscellaneous items, Wang Chong only had about 200,000 taels of gold left. At this rate, he was afraid that he would soon run out of money. If so, he would fall back to his previous penniless state. It's about time for me to bring out my new work, Wang Chong thought to himself. Driving the car, Wang Chong made sure that no one was tailing him before entering the cavern of the Wei clan's smithy once more. The surroundings of the smithy were silent. Wei Hao had already given this place to Wang Chong. As long as Wang Chong needed it, this place could become Wang Chong's personal smithy. The Wei clan had many businesses, and smithy was only one of them. Take this smithy as an example. As long as Wei Hao made up for its loss, even his father, the Duke of Wei, wouldn't be able to notice that something had been done to it. Help me guard the outside. Don't let anyone get close. Wang Chong arranged for Li Zhuxin to guard the outside before entering the cavern alone. Wang Chong was already very familiar with quenching weapons. Even though quenching was very important to a weapon, like a phoenix rising from the ashes, it wasn't actually that complicated to operate. The key was the change in thinking and the change in the quenching fluid. The quenching that Wang Chong had mastered was completely beyond this era. Walking into the cavern, Wang Chong poured the quenching fluid that was a mixture of sesame oil, sheep oil, butter, and asphalt brought by the Western region merchants into the metal trough. Then, he went to the nearby area to cut some pine branches, piled them on the ground, and started burning them. The temperature at which Wuxia steel was quenched was very important. Otherwise, even if one mastered the right quenching fluid, the quality of the final product could be worlds apart, and it might even turn into a waste product. From night till dawn, Wang Chong was extremely busy. Around daybreak, the morning sun rose. A sizzling black smoke rose from the metal trough. A moment later, Wang Chong took out a pair of metal pliers and fished out the narrow, thin and thick saber from the trough. Oil flowed everywhere, and a shiny saber with beautiful patterns appeared in front of Wang Chong. This was the world's first narrow, thin, and thick saber. When the morning sun shone in from outside the cavern, it reflected a dazzling, cold light. Just by looking at it, Wang Chong could feel that this saber was extremely sharp and indestructible. Clang. With a flash of cold light, the metal trough containing the quenching fluid was immediately cut into two. It was so soft that it looked like it was rotting. Good saber. Wang Chong looked at the saber and smiled. Even without the praise of others, Wang Chong could feel that this saber was probably even sharper than his Wuxia steel sword. This saber combined the skills of the world's #1 swordsmith, Tuoba Gyuan, and his epic-making skills. In terms of quality, it had already reached the peak of this world. Moreover, the unique arc and weight of the blade were enough to make it the favorite of experts in the saber Dao. It's a pity that I only use swords, Wang Chong thought to himself. He used a sword for his single-character consecutive slash, and this saber wasn't suitable for him. However, even a swordsman like Wang Chong couldn't bear to let go of this saber when he held it in his hands. Needless to say, those saber experts would feel the same way. This saber wasn't just sharp. Its exterior design was originally very suitable for slashing, slashing, and slashing. Now, all that's left is to temper it, Wang Chong thought to himself. To many people, a saber like Wang Chong's was already a finished product. Even if he took it out, it would be sought after by tens of thousands of people. However, Wang Chong knew that this wasn't the way to go. Although such a saber was sharp and easy to use, it was easy to break. If it was too rigid, it might not be a good thing for a saber. If he didn't solve this problem, it might be broken at a crucial moment in the hands of a top-notch martial artist. In this world, although there weren't many people who forged sabers, there were definitely people who understood sabers. At least, many people knew the principle of rigid but easy to break. For those top-notch martial artists, they could use brute force to hit the middle of the saber or close to 70% of the hilt. They would most likely be able to break the saber with brute force. If that happened, the reputation of Wuxia steel in this world would be ruined. The reputation that Wang Chong had painstakingly built up would also be destroyed. In the future, it wouldn't be so easy to make money from Hyderabad ores. That would be destroying his own reputation. Of course, Wang Chong wouldn't do such a thing. Therefore he had to temper. Many people thought that after quenching, the saber and sword were considered complete. However, almost no one knew that after quenching, there was actually another process called temper. This was the last process in the entire process of forging a sword, and it was also the highest and pinnacle of the process. In this world, many people hadn't even mastered the skill of quenching, let alone the epic-making skill of temper. This was a skill that Wang Chong had mastered alone. At the same time, it was his biggest and final secret in the field of swordsmithing. Without the technique of temper, a weapon like the 7-foot narrow, thick saber would never be made. If it was made, it would only be a joke and not a real weapon. Temper could eliminate the quenching and the small internal cracks caused by the hammering of the saber and sword. It could also repair and prevent the saber from deforming. This was one of the reasons. In addition, temper could further increase the performance of the saber and sword in all aspects, including sharpness, hardness, durability, and most importantly, toughness. Toughness might not sound like much, but if one thought about it, adding toughness to an extremely hard weapon was incredible. It was like wrapping a piece of ice in a fire and not melting it. Once a 7-foot narrow, thick saber had toughness, even if it was just a little bit, it would make a huge difference in performance. With toughness, the saber could be considered to have truly made up for its shortcomings and become a real top-notch weapon. Moreover, he wouldn't have to worry about being snapped by the fingers of those top-notch fighters in battle. With temper, he could add toughness to a weapon. This meant that in this world, Wang Chong had truly mastered a never-before-seen weapon-making technique. Chapter 140. The nurturing of Uncle in the cavern, Wang Chong chopped some pine branches and started a new fire. Unlike quenching, this was a small fire. There were only a few pine branches. The temperature of tempering was even lower than that of quenching, around 150 degrees Celsius. Thus, a small fire with a few pine branches sufficed. It's about time. Wang Chong placed a hand on top of the fire and felt that it was about time. Thus, he placed the quenched saber on top of the fire. A temperature of 150 degrees Celsius was extremely low, far from being able to melt Wuxia steel. In fact, it would be hard for the saber to even heat it until it was slightly red. Under such circumstances, and after being quenched, the toughness of the saber had reached an astonishing level. This meant that the tempering process was much more energy-consuming than quenching, and it required much more time and effort. If it was in the past, it would have been difficult for Wang Chong to complete the tempering of a finished Wuxia steel product. However, after reaching Origin Energy Tier 7 and cultivating Might of the Barbaric God, Wang Chong's strength had increased significantly, allowing him to complete this process alone. Boom! As though a bolt of lightning, Wang Chong brandished his metal hammer and smashed it heavily against the surface of the saber. The heavy smithing platform trembled under Wang Chong's hammer, and a lot of stone powder and stone fragments fell from the cavern. Boom! Thrice. Wang Chong exerted his full strength, and the metal hammer in his hand fell time and time again. He exerted his full strength every single time. Regarding the first Wuxia steel saber that he was about to forge, Wang Chong was filled with anticipation. The sound of Wang Chong's hammer echoed throughout the cavern. The tempering process required much more time than quenching. The tough nature of the Wuxia steel meant that Wang Chong needed to spend more time on this weapon. For the whole day, from sunrise to sunset, until all the pine branches that Wang Chong had cut down were burned. Wang Chong finally completed the tempering process. Sweating profusely, Wang Chong stood at the edge of the iron platform. His clothes were soaked, and the ground within 3 zhang of his feet was wet. Wang Chong had spent a lot of time and energy to forge this narrow, thin, and thick saber. However, Wang Chong's heart was filled with gratification and satisfaction as he looked at the new narrow, thin, and thick blade in his hand. After spending a day and a night, it's all worth it. Wang Chong gripped the hilt and raised the narrow, thin, and thick saber in his hand. This saber was gorgeous and beautiful, and its surface was filled with magical patterns that flowed like clouds and flowing water. At the same time, behind the gorgeous and beautiful appearance, there was an extreme coldness and bloodthirst. This was a weapon that was born to kill. However, in Wang Chong's hands, it was brought to perfection, reaching the level of art. Shua! Wang Chong held the saber in his wrist and shook it lightly. The air in the cavern immediately rippled like ripples, as though the air itself had been sliced into countless pieces. Amidst the embers of the pine branches, one could see that the sharpness of the narrow, thin, and thick saber was even more terrifying than before. What a good saber! Such a good saber should have its own name. Have you thought of what to call it? A series of footsteps sounded from behind. Li Zhuxin's robes fluttered as he walked into the cavern. Looking at the narrow, thin and thick saber in Wang Chong's hands, his usually calm eyes couldn't help but waver. Hee, I've thought of it. Let's call it Death's Abyss. Wang Chong said with a smile. He seemed to have long known of Li Zhuxin's appearance. Death's Abyss? What a good name. If I knew that you had such a weapon, I might have changed my employment condition to this saber. Li Zhuxin stared at the Death's Abyss in Wang Chong's hands as he spoke. Even though he wasn't a saber user, he couldn't help but feel a sense of fondness for it, and he wanted to claim it for himself. To those true saber users, it was easy to imagine how attractive this saber was. Hee, even if you want it, I won't agree to it. Wang Chong chuckled. 2 June of Hyderabad ores were used to forge this Death's Abyss. Just its normal price alone would fetch at least 80,000 gold taels. Furthermore, this weapon was much more formidable than any weapon Wang Chong had forged before. On top of that, it even harnessed the tempering technique that Wang Chong had mastered. In terms of value, Wang Chong estimated it to be worth at least 100,000 gold taels. This price was much higher than the price he had to pay to hire Li Zhuxin. This was truly a priceless treasure. It represented the highest level of saber arts in this world. Leaving the cavern with Li Zhuxin, Wang Chong headed straight for the capital and handed the newly forged Death's Abyss to Uncle Li Lin. Upon seeing the newly forged Death's Abyss, Li Lin was overjoyed. Wang Chong had disappeared for more than a month, and in this period of time, Li Lin felt as if a year had passed. The Imperial Army commanders who came to demand for the Wuxia steel weapon had trampled through Li Lin's doorstep. Yet, most of them were Li Lin's superiors, and there were some whom even Zhao Fengshen couldn't afford to offend. The pressure that Li Lin was under was unimaginable. Chong, if you had come any later, you would have been collecting my corpse. Li Lin said with a look of relief. Uncle, aren't you being too exaggerated? Wang Chong chuckled. I'm not exaggerating. Don't worry, Chong, I'll leave this matter to me. Without any hesitation, Li Lin was about to enter the royal palace with the Death's Abyss. Wait a moment. Wang Chong hurriedly stopped Uncle Li Lin. Death's Abyss might be important, but this wasn't the only reason why Wang Chong came here this time. There are a few things that I'll have to trouble Uncle to help me with. As Wang Chong spoke, he explained the matter regarding the assassin pavilion to Li Lin. To think that there would be such a thing. After hearing the entire matter, Li Lin harumphed coldly. A rare sliver of killing intent surfaced on his face. It's one thing for them to deal with others, but to think that they would try to kill you as well, we can't let them live. Don't worry, I'll inform Lord Zhao of this matter and have him help us deal with it. You don't know. You're the apple of everyone's eye in the Imperial Army. If anything were to happen to you, even without me and Lord Zhao making a move, the commanders of the Imperial Army would tear them to shreds. Li Lin wasn't spouting nonsense. At this moment, Wang Chong had already formed a huge chain of relationships. Based on what Wang Chong said, Li Lin had received money from many people in the Imperial Army. Yet, these people were still willing to send their money over. Furthermore, after the battle between Zhao Fengshen and Huang Xiaotian, the Wuxia steel sword forged by Wang Chong had gained the recognition of the entire Imperial Army, becoming the #1 blade of the Imperial Army. In the eyes of the Imperial Army, in the entire capital, or even the entire Central Plains, only the weapons forged by Wang Chong were worthy of the identity of an Imperial Army member. At this moment, as long as one was capable, every single Imperial Army member would look forward to receiving a Wuxia steel sword. Li Lin couldn't even collect enough money every month. If something were to happen to such a master swordsmith, it was easy to imagine how the Imperial Army would react. Don't worry, I know that at least 3 commanders of the Imperial Army would be willing to make a move on this malignant tumor. What profound martial realm expert. What assassin pavilion. In the capital, going against you is equivalent to going against the entire Imperial Army. I'll get rid of every single one of these malignant tumors. Wang Chong's uncle, Li Lin, looked at Wang Chong with disdain, and a domineering aura flowed out from him. Even Wang Chong couldn't help but stare at him in astonishment. He had known his uncle for a long time, but he had never seen such domineering aura from him. The appearance is born from the heart, and the heart changes from the state. After being transferred out of the North Gate and promoted, my uncle's state of mind has changed as well. He has already nurtured his own domineering aura. Wang Chong thought. Wang Chong was delighted by this change. In his previous life, his uncle had always been a little fearful due to his relationship with the old master. However, things were different now. Men were ambitious, this was their nature. In Wang Chong's view, this was his uncle's true self. Perhaps, it's time for that matter to be brought forward. Wang Chong thought. In Wang Chong's heart, every single one of his family members was his left and right arms, and they were an important force that could change his fate. This time, Wang Chong was only here to hand over the Death's Abyss and have his uncle deal with the Assassin Pavilion. However, the domineering aura from his uncle had stirred Wang Chong's heart. The reason why Wang Chong helped his uncle wasn't because he wanted him to spend the rest of his life on the walls of the royal palace, or to serve as Zhao Fengshen's lackey. Toward his uncle, Wang Chong had greater expectations and ambitions. However, with his current strength, it was impossible for him to accomplish all of this. Uncle, wait a moment. Under Uncle Li Lin's astonished gaze, Wang Chong suddenly dived into the carriage. When he came out, he was holding a handwritten secret manual in his hand. Uncle, this is for you. Wang Chong took the secret manual that he had hidden in the secret chamber beneath the carriage and passed it over with a single hand. For me? What is it? Li Lin looked at Wang Chong in confusion, unable to make head or tail of what was going on. As he spoke, he subconsciously took it from Wang Chong. Initially, Li Lin was still in a daze, but after flipping through 2 pages, his face warped in astonishment. Martial Arts Secret Manual. What Wang Chong passed him was a martial arts secret manual, and an extremely formidable one at that. Just by flipping through a few pages, Li Lin could tell that this martial art was far more formidable than any of the martial arts he had learned before. Chong, how did you get such a thing? Li Lin was astonished. This martial art was of an extremely high tier. Li Lin didn't believe that a teenager like Wang Chong could possess it. Uncle, this was actually given to me by my grandfather. Wang Chong pointed it out and pushed all of the credit to his grandfather. Even though Wang Chong was able to purchase the Hyderabad ore and forge the Wuxia steel sword, it wasn't completely inconceivable. At the very least, it was within reason. However, for a top-notch martial arts secret manual to be taken out all of a sudden, it was impossible for one not to be suspicious. This wasn't something that could be explained by intelligence. It was precisely because of this that even though Wang Chong had already made a copy of this secret manual, he didn't find a suitable opportunity to pass it to him. Until the Four Quarters Embassy, Old Master? Li Lin was astonished. That's right. Do you still remember the Four Quarters Embassy? It was after my birthday that my grandfather asked my grandmother to pass it to me. Grandfather probably felt embarrassed, so he asked me to pass it to you. Feigning ignorance, Wang Chong said insincerely. Grandfather had been suppressing uncle to the position of the North Gate's underling. Even though it was for his own good, uncle was a man. It was hard to say that he wouldn't hold a grudge against uncle. In a sense, Wang Chong was helping to mend the rift between uncle and grandfather. Old Master. As expected, upon hearing Wang Chong's words, Li Lin seemed to have understood something, and his eyes were filled with gratitude. However, in front of Wang Chong, he managed to hold himself back. I understand. Li Lin smiled. If there's a chance, help me thank the old master. Tell him that uncle won't let him down. Leave the matter of the Wuxia steel saber to me. I'll be heading in now. After which, he turned around and walked toward the royal palace with Death's Abyss in tow. Perhaps it was his imagination, but Wang Chong felt as though a heavy burden had been lifted from his back, or as though a burden buried deep in his heart had been lifted. Chapter 141. After resolving the matter regarding the Wuxia steel, Wang Chong heaved a sigh of relief. However, he didn't let up. Instead, he continued to search for traces of the evil emperor, while heading to the Ghost Tree District to play chess. On the other hand, Uncle Li Lin's side was progressing swiftly as well. Seemingly out of anger at the assassin pavilion for attempting to assassinate Wang Chong, he vanished after just 2 days. While the Imperial Army was patrolling the capital, they discovered a nest of assassins with malicious intentions. All of them were killed, and their corpses piled up in the courtyard. This matter caused a huge uproar in the capital. It was said that a large number of Imperial Army experts were mobilized for this matter, and there were even 5 to 6 commanders of the Imperial Army. Many people witnessed it personally, and they said that the matter wasn't as simple as it seemed. However, there was one thing that was certain. These people were dressed in black and were dressed like assassins. This point was certain. Thus, no one spoke up for them. When Wang Chong heard of this matter, he chuckled lightly. He only sent a letter to Mayasame Ayaka before tossing the matter to the back of his mind. While Wang Chong was living his life peacefully, the depths of the royal palace wasn't peaceful at all. Deep in the night, somewhere in the abandoned cold palace of the Imperial Palace, the lights were brightly lit. Rows of lanterns were hung from the trees and the eaves. Outside the cold palace was a huge crowd. Imperial Army members surrounded the area, and with a single glance, one could tell that there were at least 1,000 of them. Today was a big day for the Imperial Army. Everyone knew that the #1 swordsmith of the Tang dynasty would be auctioning off his second weapon. In the royal palace, there were many Imperial Army commanders who had been eagerly anticipating the auction. After witnessing the battle between Zhao Fengchen and Huang Xiaoyun, everyone knew that this weapon was incomparably sharp, beautiful, and rare. To the Imperial Army, it could raise their fighting prowess by leaps and bounds. More importantly, this weapon was priceless, and it was something that could only be chanced upon. To the Imperial Army, only this weapon could serve as a foil to their standing. After so long, it's finally time for that Gongzi to forge a new weapon. He only makes a single one every month. It really makes one drool. If only there were more of them. The first weapon was taken by Commander Zhao. I just don't know who will be so lucky this time. Yeah. If only I had a Wuxia steel weapon like that. What a pity, it was so expensive. I can't afford it, so I can only look around. Outside the cold palace, there was a lot of discussion. Now, everyone knew that the son of a general or minister had handed over all the Wuxia steel weapons in the Imperial Army to his uncle, Li Lin. There was no one in the Imperial Army who didn't know of Li Lin. He's here, he's here. Suddenly, there was a commotion in front. Everyone looked up and saw that the door was open. A brilliant light shone through the door. Li Lin, clad in heavy armor and a long sword at his waist, appeared in front of everyone with a dignified expression. In an instant, the noisy Imperial Army fell silent. Now, those who want to auction weapons can come in with the slip from before. Li Lin said solemnly. The moment these words were spoken, the Imperial Army commanders walked in with smiles on their faces, holding the slips of paper that Wang Chong had given them. Everyone knew that the competition for this auction would be intense. That Wuxia steel weapon definitely wasn't cheap. But money? Who the heck cared about money? As long as they could buy that invincible weapon that could cut through metal as though mud, what did money matter? In any case, the Imperial Army didn't have much expenditure. Furthermore, even if they were to run into trouble in the future, they wouldn't have to worry about not being able to sell this weapon. The 20 to 30 Imperial Army leaders walked in together. Next, those with wooden tokens can come in, Li Lin said. This was Li Lin's idea. Even though Wang Chong wanted to sell batches of credentials, Li Lin didn't think that it was necessary. As a member of the Imperial Army, he knew how popular the Wuxia steel was. No matter where he went, there would be people talking about the auction at the Blue Bottle Pavilion. There were also people discussing the battle between Zhao Fengchen and Huang Xiaotian. A Wuxia steel weapon that was said to be indestructible and could even cut a strand of hair with the slightest breeze was enough to make one's blood boil and tremble, as if they wanted to get their hands on it. It was precisely because he was part of the Imperial Army that he knew how intense this hunger was that Li Lin dared to do it. One must know that this was an Imperial Army of more than 100,000 soldiers. However, Wang Chong's Wuxia steel sword was only produced once a month. It would be strange if the Imperial Army didn't go crazy over it. Therefore, Li Lin decided to divide the auction into 2 levels of qualifications. Wang Chang's slip was the first batch, and he could enjoy a discount. The wooden plate that Li Lin opened was from the second batch, which belonged to a lower level. With a wooden token, one could participate in the auction as well. However, they had to pay 10% more than the auction price. Moreover, it was different from the ones Wang Chong had written. Li Lin's wooden token was a one-time use item. Each wooden token cost 200 taels of gold, and it would become useless after a single match. If they wanted to participate next time, they would have to buy it again. Don't think it's too expensive. In Li Lin's view, it was still too cheap. There were more than 100,000 soldiers in the Imperial Army. Even if one didn't buy it, someone else would. There was no need to worry about not being able to sell it. Furthermore, those who were able to come here and spend tens of thousands of gold taels on Wuxia steel swords would definitely not be short of 200 taels of gold. In Li Lin's view, this was the correct way to auction the Wuxia steel swords. Through this method, he could distinguish who the real buyers of the Wuxia steel swords were. As for Wang Chang's slips, what a waste! However, what was done could not be undone. Li Lin couldn't say anything more. In an instant, 70 to 80 Imperial Army leaders rushed in. Just these people alone had earned more than 15,000 taels of gold. To be able to earn more than 10,000 taels of gold from an auction of swords and sabers, only a fool wouldn't do such a good thing. Next, those with metal slips can come in. Li Lin said. This was the lowest level. In the Imperial Army, there were many who were curious about the Wuxia steel swords and had a strong desire for them. To Li Lin, since that was the case, why not make use of them as well? The more people that saw it, the better its reputation would be, and the faster it would spread. At the same time, more hidden buyers would appear in the Imperial Army. Thus, Li Lin signed the third-level metal slips. These metal slips were priced at 10 gold taels each, and it wasn't expensive. Those with metal slips were allowed to spectate by the side. However, they could only spectate by the side. They couldn't buy anything and there weren't any seats. Don't complain about the poor service and lack of seats. One must know that there were more than 100,000 Imperial Army members waiting outside. In an instant, hundreds of Imperial Army members rushed forward. This was another few thousand gold taels of gold. Just this auction alone would earn Li Lin at least 20,000 gold taels. After doing all of this, Li Lin returned to the inner chamber. The cold palace of the royal palace was massive, and the small residences outside couldn't compare to it. The main hall was brightly lit, and at the very top of the hall sat 3 commanders. At the very center was Commander Zhao Fengchen. Time flew, and it had been more than a month since Zhao Fengchen took the position of commander. Compared to before, Zhao Fengchen's aura had clearly grown stronger and more authoritative. Li Lin entered the room and bowed slightly to Zhao Fengchen. Then he walked up to a large rectangular wooden platform at the center of the hall. Lord Li, where's the Wuxia steel sword? Hurry up and take it out. Don't keep us in suspense. That's right, everyone is waiting. Lord Li, it's been more than a month. Our brothers have been waiting anxiously for it. Don't tease us anymore. Everyone jeered impatiently. They couldn't wait any longer. Lord Li, you can't be joking with us, right? Some of the Imperial Army commanders even expressed their displeasure. So anxious? Can't you wait even a moment? Li Lin chuckled. This was the effect he wanted. Since that's the case, I won't keep you in suspense. The second Wuxia steel sword is right here. Right after saying those words, Li Lin slammed his palm on the wooden platform before him. The wooden platform was smashed into pieces, and underneath the chest was a pitch-black weapon that was 7 feet long. The weapon was placed on a similarly long, hollow, pitch-black metal table. In an instant, the entire hall fell silent. Everyone thought that Li Lin was the one hosting the auction, but who could have thought that there would be a hidden mechanism hidden within the wooden platform? Lord Li, what's this? An Imperial Army commander stood up from his seat and pointed to the bizarre weapon on the hollow metal table. Many people thought that Wang Chang's work would be a sword, just like the previous one. But from the looks of it, that wasn't the case at all. The weapon was around 2 fingers wide, but it was 7 chi long. Furthermore, it had a certain curve to it, making it look extremely beautiful. It was sheathed in a black wooden sheath, and it looked completely different from any weapon that they had seen before. Good question. This is the first saber that my nephew, Wang Chong, has forged. Just this point alone makes this saber extremely valuable as a collector's item. Furthermore, I believe that all of you can tell that this saber is extremely long. That's right, the craftsmanship of this saber is completely different from before. The materials used to forge this saber are twice that of swords. On top of that, this saber is just as sharp, perhaps even sharper. According to my nephew, this saber is made for killing, so he named it Death's Abyss. Around this saber, no one can escape death. Li Lin spoke with confidence and composure. Even before so many Imperial Army commanders, he didn't lose his composure at all. Death's Abyss. Everyone turned to look at him. Just the name itself was enough to tell that this saber was a famous one, and it was worth collecting. More importantly, this was the first saber creation of the #1 swordsmith in the world. Just this alone would be able to fetch a high price in the future. It's indeed worth it. This is the first saber creation. Such an item is priceless. In the hall, the Imperial Army commanders were trembling in agitation. They didn't lack money, but they had money that they couldn't spend. Not only could this weapon display their identity and raise their fighting prowess, it was also a collector's item. Wasn't this the best weapon? Li Lin, how much is this weapon? That's a good question. Li Lin's eyes lit up as he announced the starting bid. The starting bid for this Death's Abyss is 80,000 gold taels. There's only one, and it goes to the highest bidder. The auction begins now. Boom! Welcome to Legends of Cultivation, audiobooks, where we bring ancient fantasy to life through storytelling. Follow the rise of heroes who defy fate, unlock mystical powers, and battle across celestial realms. Our audiobooks are crafted for fans of Chinese cultivation novels, filled with battles, breakthroughs, and legendary artifacts. Subscribe and be part of an unforgettable journey into the realm of immortality.